Yes, so good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this webinar. I hope that you can hear me. Yes, okay, very good. Yeah, welcome to this webinar. It's the third webinar in our series of the midterm webinars. I'm glad to see you in this session. My name is Tommi Vollmann. I work for Atene in Berlin, and I am the project manager for LUCIA, and I will also be your moderator today. The topic of today's webinar is target groups and different needs and demands of target groups towards lighting, towards public lighting. Also diverting needs towards lighting. There might be some that require less light with a view to protecting biodiversity or preserving dark skies, while there might be other target groups that need more light, for example, to increase the perceived safety of public spaces. So how to manage these different needs, different demands, that's not an easy task for those being in charge of lighting in cities. And this is what we will look at today, together with you. We have three speakers in this webinar. We will first start with a presentation by Andreas Hänel, who is one of the leading experts on the topic of light pollution and is leader of the Dark Sky Working Group in the Association of Star Friends. And we will then also hear two examples from LUCIA pilot projects and learn how they are working together with different target groups. First, we will hear from Professor Yury Nurulin from the Saint-Petersburg, Peter the Great St. Petersburg Polytechnic University. How they are working together with students in their pilot projects in St. Petersburg. Yury is the leader of this pilot project. And we will also hear from our pilot project in Hamburg. And we see Heike Bunte there in Hamburg, lead partner of the LUCIA project and leader of the pilot project in Hamburg, where you have worked together quite a lot with senior citizens and the generation 65 plus. So you will tell us a little bit about your experiences there in Hamburg. So we're very much looking forward to that. And now let's see whether we already have Andreas Hänel with us in the session. Welcome once more, Andreas Hänel. So I think the floor is yours. We're happy to hear your presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. So I want to speak a little bit about the lighting in cities, what is done, why it is done, and what can be done to make it a little bit better. The next slide, please. So we have here a picture seeing Europe, Western Europe from space, from the International Space Station, and you see that we have quite different lighting habits in European countries. In the foreground, you see this yellow, that's Belgium. Then to the left, to the left, you see not as yellow, but a little bit warm light. That's the Netherlands. Then you see Germany that has a little bit more whiter light. And you see also Hamburg over there, quite this bright spot. You can see the picture.
We can see it.
Okay, now I can see it. Yeah. Yes. So you have what I just explained. That's the window where you see Europe from the International Space Station. So the bright spot over there is Hamburg, and we just jump into Hamburg in the next slide, and you see for what reasons we need lighting. So you see here that's the typical streets and so on that you have lighted. But the question is, you have quite different levels of lighting, and the question is here, what must be illuminated, how much. Second slide, the lower right, that's the park, that's reasonable dark, but you see also on the front of the houses they illuminated. So that's this typical situation that they make facade illumination. The next slide then shows also that we have businesses. For instance, in Hamburg we have the harbor that is very bright illuminated. But sometimes, for instance, for touristic reasons, they make like something like you see when you just overlap the next. Yeah, when you make an overlap, sometimes it's illuminated blue, and the question if it is really necessary. In the next slide, you see that's, for instance, the Reeperbahn in Hamburg. And even if you are looking for the natural stars, you can't see it. You see mainly electrical stars, like in the picture below. And if you look at the next picture, that's also the question if it is really necessary. Next slide. To illuminate the Elbe Philharmonie with such bright blue lights that you get a very, very bright sky. Well, often it is said, next slide, that we need light or even more light for more security. But that's perhaps a feeling, but it's not statistical true. The true thing is, as you can see in the next slide, that's an empirical study that has been done in the United Kingdom, in England and Wales, and I think that's the most how shall I say, that's the most, the largest study that ever has been made about the problems reducing, or if you are reducing lighting, and many communities in England have to do it, that they have to reduce lighting, and they compared it with traffic collisions, with burglaries, thefts, and so on. And there was absolutely no indication that lighting and security is somehow interrelated. So what's about the sky? If next slide, if you look at the sky, and here we have views of different parts in Germany, from very bright in Berlin. You see the upper part of this picture. These are slides taken at exposure time of half a minute, below 3 minutes, because then in West Havelland, one of the darkest places in Germany and one of our star parks, you can see that you have a really, really dark sky. But that is vanishing in villages, and when we look at the next slide, the question is, why do we have it? It's mainly that, or we call it light pollution, and that's due, as you can see the picture, through the glare, the direct glare, the glare from direct lights. It's the light trespass, that light goes to the neighbor, and it is the light that is scattered in the atmosphere and gives something like a veil over the stars, that you can see only bright stars. The faintest are suppressed, and well, that's really a pollution, and so the term light pollution is quite affected. But why do we have this problem? And the next slide shows us that's pollution. Next slide shows us that's due to the increase of lighting flux, because we use more and more efficient lighting sources. And here you have the example that I could get by chance from Paris. It was in the 70s of last century. It looked a little bit greenish. That was due to mercury high pressure lamps. Then much of the lighting was exchanged to the yellow sodium high pressure lamps that are very energy efficient. And afterwards, as people is said that people like more the white light, it has been already changed to metal halide lamps, but now Paris is changing, of course, to LED, but they now prefer also warm white lighting for the LEDs. I have not been there during the last year, so I think they have only changed a little bit because they have done this change to metal light. So everything is getting brighter, and in the next slide I show you another example that, for instance, the parking lots are getting brighter and brighter. Top on the left you have a parking lot with a reasonable lighting with 3000 Kelvin warm white lighting and an illumination of 7 to 16 lux. And besides, you see a modern, a renovated supermarket that has a much more brighter lighting, 4000 Kelvin, 60, 70, 80 lux. So it's much too bright, and it's even much brighter than the norms. And so for me, it's more or less an energy waste because it does not need to be so bright. And as you get in the next slide, as you get only brighter and brighter luminous, you see here that the illumination is getting everywhere brighter and brighter. Just a luminaire to illuminate the stair on the left, 80 lux, that's much too bright. 10 to 20 lux would be enough, but you even have the problems in buying a luminaire that has a lower lumen output. And on the right, you see another problem we have now. These are the floodlights. If they are badly oriented, these are just glaring, and you see if they are installed not too high, then it is extremely bright on the ground. And we have this problem in the next picture. We have, next slide, we have this problem even with the street lights. There was judgment in Munich just 2 years ago that they looked at this, and it was clear that the glare of street lightings has always been not really recognized, but now we know that they are very glary, and that's not according to the only regulation we have in Germany. That's the so-called light emission guideline. They are much, much brighter. Yeah, and next slide, we see that also advertising, the billboards, illuminated billboards and facade illumination are getting brighter and brighter. They have values of luminance of something like more than 1000 candela per square meter. That's much too bright. Reasonable values would be up to 100 candela per square meter. That would be quite bright. And well, that's really a problem. The next slide now shows us another thing that's even far-reaching advertisements by illuminating, for instance, towers, and that's getting really a problem, for instance, for migrating birds that are attracted by these illuminated towers. And then we can ask the question, well, we want to illuminate everything. What is really the value of the night? Next slide. And we know since some years that we really do we really need the night? I think yes, because the starry sky, the observation of the starry sky is one of the oldest cultural assets. It has been used in art and literature. It's important for science and also for curiosity of mankind. And this is fascinating natural spectacle. We need it for biodiversity. We know that animals, like humans, need rest and activity phases. So normally for some animals, the night is the active phase. For others, it's the rest phase. They need it for reproduction and for breeding. And finally, also human health. I already told about it. because we have to control our circadian rhythms, our day-night activity. We need these rest phases at night, and we need it for production of a certain hormone that's called melatonin. So you see, the night is really important, and we should protect it. And one problem, just an example from Hamburg, next slide, is that we have there a special spider, the bridge spider. And it has been observed mainly in the Hafen city, Hafenstadt from Hamburg, because there the facades are illuminated, and that's directly beside of the Elbe River. So we have a lot of artificial light there, and they profit from the light. They reproduce much, much faster than normally, and they have aquatic insects from the river coming up, so they have enough of food, and it disturbs the inhabitants because it produces high costs of cleaning. I do not know, that has been seen about 10 years ago. I do not know if they found a solution and what the solution now is. So how can we reduce light pollution? Just by directing the light. You see, street lighting is often illuminating the facade, house facades, much more than the street. It does not need, that is not necessary. You can use the next slide, light that's directed where you need it, to the ground, by using full cutoff luminaires that do not illuminate this to the side, but only down to the ground. We call it the upward light ratio must be 0. And that's not a technical, that's not a fantasy, because all the firms, in next slide, they have such luminaires, and they can be used, they can be ordered directly, that's no problem. The other possibility is, next slide, to use adaptive lighting, that you illuminate when you need light, but you should not make this example I have here from Osnabrück. It was a road that was long not illuminated, and normally it's illuminated at the reduced level of 5 lux. That's a quite comfortable illumination level, but they have motion sensors. When somebody is coming, then it gets brighter to 23 lux, and that's much too bright. So it's a question if it is necessary to illuminate so bright. And here I just wanted to give you at least an example for a city that in Germany that does it very good. That's the city of Springe, 30,000 inhabitants. It's something like a best practice example. I think it's to the southwest of Hanover. You see the satellite picture, the red spot, that's Hanover. And you see there are some green spots below. That's where I took some measurements, and they have a very dark sky. What have they done? They have, next picture, they have replaced all their luminaires to LED luminaires, these full cutoff luminaires, LED with 3000 Kelvin. And you see the first graph shows the brightness that has been measured by the satellite. In the beginning, you see that the lighting is slowly increasing. That's due to more and more industry that's getting there. And then we had in 2018 a jump, much brighter, because they decided before between 1 and 4 o'clock lighting was switched off. And then politicians decided to have lighting all the night due to for security reasons, and so it got very bright. But they changed now the lighting to LED, and they have a very, very good reduction, adaptive reduction during night, and so the brightness of the whole city afterwards got much darker. And you see what they do. They measured the traffic density, that's the blue graph in the lower graph, and they reduced the lighting level down to 30% of the full power that they use during most of the nights. So they reduce light pollution a lot, and you can see it in the next picture. You have there examples reducing during the night at 80% level, then to 65 and finally to 30%. And that's a very comfortable lighting. So I think it's a very good example how one can do it. And from the outside, it does not affect so much light pollution, because the next slide, because the sky over the city is dominated by the lights from Hanover. But you see, if you look at the streets, they are getting much darker during night when nobody or nearly nobody is in the street. So conclusion, recommendations what to do: just look if you have to install lighting everywhere, only there where it is really necessary. To use lowest lighting levels, we have the European norms. There you can choose the lowest lighting class. Use these full cutoff lightings that emit no light to the side. Use low blue content, because that's better for human health and also for insects. So less than 3000 Kelvin color temperature. Use a responsive or adaptive lighting, reduced during the night. Sorry, and do not illuminate facades too bright. So this might help. Next slide. This might help to reduce also the influence on the insects. That's a very large theme now in Germany, and we are just working on the law against light pollution to protect insects. So it's very, very important to help them. And perhaps not in Hamburg, but just a little bit outside, you can have a sky like you see in the next slide. That's on the island of Pellworm, about 80 kilometers or 100 kilometers away from Hamburg. You can still have a very, very dark sky, and it's important to protect these dark skies. Sorry, next slide, please. Last slide. Yeah, that's a picture from Hamburg. And next, with this, I want next slide, please. With this, I want to thank you for your attention. If you have questions or discussion, I'm happy to see it. And sorry for the difficulties.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Andreas. For this excellent introduction to the topic of light pollution, and also for giving us some hints what we can do to reduce light pollution, in fact. I see some questions in the chat, indeed. But as our topic is target groups today, please allow me to ask one question myself as well. So what would be what is your experience in working together with municipalities also? How big would you say is the awareness for this topic of light pollution in municipalities? Do you think it is already somehow a mainstream topic? Or is it still something that, that is only discussed by certain target groups?
It's getting more and more a topic. Nearly many municipalities are talking about light pollution, but they really do not know what to do to reduce light pollution. So we have developed these guidelines. These were especially for the communities in the dark sky parks and dark sky reserves we developed. The largest one is Fulda, for instance, near to the Rhön, in central of Germany. So I think it's getting more and more a problem, and more administrations and municipalities are looking for the problem.
You mentioned in your talk some of the solutions to reduce light pollution, such as directed light or adaptive lighting. Heike Bunte is asking in the chat whether there are additional soft measures that we can take to convince retailers, for example, to reduce lighting.
What means soft actions? Soft actions could be recommendations, and it could also be to convince people that by you know the discussion in Germany during the last years have only been energy efficiency. Yeah, so they looked for the most energy efficient lighting, and that's the cold blue lighting, 4,000, 5,000 Kelvin. Nobody likes 5,000 Kelvin, so lighting engineers said always 4,000 is the compromise. But now we know that 4,000 Kelvin LED lighting has too much blue content for ecological reasons, and the energy difference between this neutral white and warm white lighting has decreased more and more, and now they are more or less the same energy efficiency. So there and people, if you make a comparison, yeah, if you put different lights of different color temperature, people always like the warm white lighting much more. So we now have to look not only for energy efficiency, but also for, I will say, ecological efficiency. What is good for humans, what is good for nature.
Thank you very much. You also mentioned these guidelines that you have for the dark sky areas. There was another question from Heike, which is maybe linked a little bit to this. She's asking, yeah, do we need some kind of EU-wide strategy to create such kind of dark sky parks in every city? What is your answer to that?
Well, it would be fine, but the problem is how to do it. For instance, the EU has published a paper on ecological lighting, yeah, but most people do not know it, because within this paper you find all the necessary information you need for ecological lighting. They say that, for instance, the norms are much too bright and so on, and that you should that's GPP, Green Public Procurement 2020 initiative it was. You have there all the guidelines, and the problem is last week we had the conference, online conference, about bringing these this problem of light pollution on the UNO level of the United Nations, that we bring the problem there. So you see there's happening a lot. There's also something happening now in here in Germany. I just yesterday I got there some information, because we are just working on this law against the insect decline, and for the first time their light pollution is in there. We just there's a proposal, and we just commented on this, what should be better and so on. I think there's happening. We in Germany we have this we have the situation that till now lighting was very reduced in Germany. All the communities, they looked for to decrease the cost for lighting. So we have a very low lighting level compared to other regions, to other countries. And these other countries had the problem already earlier, so they made the law. For instance, in Spanish regions, we have law. In Italian regions, we have law. In France, we have a law for the whole country and so on. So in Germany, we are a little bit later, I say, because we have not so high problem, but it is starting now with using more and more LED lighting.
So a lot is happening. The topic is, as I hear from your answer, on the agenda on many different levels, but also it sounds as if there was a bit of awareness raising, a mainstreaming work still to be done on this topic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for these insights. I would like to move on and ask Heike to share her screen now. I know that the topic of light pollution, in fact, is also very much on the agenda in Hamburg, in your pilot project in LUCIA. So we will be very curious to learn about your experiences there. I think that Nicolas will turn on your slides again in a minute. And please remember to just tell him when he should he should put on the next slides. And to our participants, once more, the request, if you have questions to Heike during the talk, please use the chat and we'll try to pick up some of these questions then after the talk. So Heike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tommy. Can you hear me all?
Yes, we can hear you, Heike.
Great, okay. Yeah, as Tommy already said, here in Hamburg, we do work with the generation 65 plus, but not only with this generation, also with other target groups. But for us, it was really important to keep an eye on that specific target group. So Nicolas, please, next slide. Just a rough overview. Before I coming to the target group, I want to give you an overview about the situation here in Hamburg, and Andreas already showed some really good examples. And then I'm coming to our pilot site. So next slide, please. Here in Hamburg, it's not the district itself or the borough who is responsible for the public lighting in the district. The organization and the standardization of the luminaires is made by the higher level, the higher administration. So we are in charge to make it work, but which luminaires we have and to which extent and which sort of luminaires is felt by the higher level. Hamburg tries to standard the luminaires. So we have more or less certain luminaires in the neighborhoods, we have certain luminaires in the harbor, but of course we also have this kind of prestige projects like the main town hall, the new harbor city, or of course, Andreas mentioned it, this certain lighting festivals, the Blue Port Days. So next one, please. So Altona is really the most western part of Hamburg. We have a high population. It's very dense with people. It's packed in a way, you can say, so that it is so important also to create good, open, urban places where people can recover from the so-called stress here in the city. And this is why we kept an eye with our LUCIA pilot site to our recreational area at the River Elbe. So next slide, please. This is our pilot site here in Altona, roughly 2 kilometers long, directly at the River Elbe. It is a well-known place for recreational activities, but also a very important route for cyclists and commuters going from west into the city center by bike or public bus. Even walking is a really important option in that area. So next one. These are our plans. We are supposed to change, or we already did that, old luminaires into new ones. We added also luminaires, altogether 25. This is the district, and as you can see also over the street, there is a very important area, which is the barrier-free access to the River Elbe for many people. So we did some redecoration there as well. So next one. This is how it looks like. This is the River Elbe with the Elbe Walkway and our recreational area during daytime. You can see many, many trees, but you can also see many stairs, or you can find many stairs, because from there you can reach the upper street, the big street, the Elbchaussee, where public buses run regular into the city center and in the other direction. You can see also on the next picture No, it's all right. Sorry. On the next picture, you can also see that opposite of the river, on the other side, there is a lot of industrial, or it's the industrial area. So already a lot of artificial light is coming from that side, and that the whole time. Because these industry rely on working concepts more or less 24 hours long. So we already, or the river is already affected by lighting from industry and from our recreational so-called area. Next one. I already mentioned that in the northern part of our pilot site, we have this tiny, tiny little tunnel, which is the barrier-free access to our walkway. Within 3 hours, sometimes you have 180 people using this tiny little tunnel because it's a barrier-free access for children, for elderly, for families, and so on, for cyclists. It's easy to pass. There is an elderly home close by, so this is why we have these huge numbers of people using this tunnel. Next one, please. This is how it looked a couple of months ago. We haven't worked on this tunnel during the past 20-25 years, so it was used in several ways from several target groups, which we call sprayers. Next one. This is the situation at night. As you see, the former lighting mostly has bleeding effects. So it was really that the outside, north and south of the tunnel was dark, more or less, or we had this old luminaires with bleeding, just bleeding effects. And it was really going into the tunnel, coming out of the tunnel was going through a black hole because the eye was not able to adapt so quickly the effects of darkness and brightness. Next one. The tunnel itself is from 1894. It's very old, and so the architecture is very old. On the north part, it is 6 meters high. On the south part, the entrance is just 2 meters. It's extremely narrow in this tunnel. It's just 1.5 meters width. So imagine coming and going out into the tunnel, which is the length is more or less 30 meters. So feelings like fear appear in that tunnel. For the new decoration, we asked artists, what can we do about it? How to make it more comfortable, not only by the lighting, but also by colors. And with the background of Lucia, for the tunnel, we had to do a survey on bats and rare insects. So we thought how to integrate all these aspects and reflect them in the new decoration. So this is the result. The artists suggested that we can work on certain colors, which are related to day and night, so dark and bright colors. And they decided to integrate also the plants and the animals which live around the tunnel. So in a very naive way, the new painting reflects on all which we can find around the tunnel. Next slide, please. So this is how it looks now. As you can see, it changed very much. It's a night and day journey which people can experience while walking now through this tunnel. And now coming to our target group, we wanted to know how and which effects appeared when people go now through this tunnel. So next slide, please. So we did a small questionnaire outside directly at the tunnel and asked them really small questions. How often they have used the tunnel before, and now is it the same amount, and is it what has changed? Which safety or which reasons increased their safety? So next slide, please. Additionally, we put the picture of the painting on the wall at that day, as you can see from the small picture. And when they came out of the tunnel, we gave them small, tiny little red and green buttons, and they should indicate on the poster where they felt good, what we might have to change in terms of lighting, bleeding effects, what they liked about the tunnel, and what they disliked. So it was quite interesting to see and to integrate this target group and do it really on the dot at the pilot site. Next one. Additionally, on top of that, we did so-called lighting walks at night, where we wanted to increase knowledge building towards public lighting, towards bleeding effects, towards old and new lamps and feelings, because there is the common prejudice that elderlies often have problems with fear if it's too dark, and they want more lighting and different lighting. So it's also that as a borough here in our daily work, we really struggle with all these different demands from target groups, and especially if it comes to sensitive areas like parks or recreational areas. So as you can see from our work, and maybe now next slide, please. With our interviews and our results, it turned out that especially in terms of the tunnel, the decoration was now the main reason why people feel safer in a way, or the perceived safety increased. And only one person mentioned that the new lighting is the core effect why safety increased. I know it's only just a tiny little survey, and it's just that we did it there on top of our workshops, but nevertheless, it was quite interesting to see and feel also what this target group thinks about public lighting. So maybe next slide, please. So the conclusion is really that our target group, the elderlies, does not require always more or brighter light. In our case, it was more the surrounding, and was the new decoration, which was the solution to increase safety. So the question is it necessary maybe or how to increase knowledge building under this target group and under other targets groups as well about this topic? And maybe next slide, please. My questions, or maybe you have also the same questions, is really, it's so difficult as an administration and in the city to handle all these different demands and political requests from different sides, as Andreas already mentioned. And on top of it, as I mentioned before, Hamburg has a high standardization at the moment, and this machine is running and running and running, and we can't really stop it as a tiny little borough. So the question is really how to get the transformation, how to get innovation into this process, and how to increase knowledge building under a certain target group on a constant level. At the moment, we appreciate LUCIA very much to do with that, and that we can work with target groups. But in general, and I assume I can speak for many administration and municipalities, it's so hard to do knowledge building on a constant level for people, for our people here in the area. So thank you very much for that. I'm looking forward to your question now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Heike, indeed, for this talk and these insights into your experiences. I see one question here, or two questions in the chat, in fact. One from Tommi. He is asking, are the artists interested in continuing next or further art and lighting projects?
Yes, of course. They would love to decorate and to paint more tunnels, and I also would love to do it. So, and we got so many positive feedback on that. And at the moment, it's also that we have to handle this issue because more and more people ask, oh, can we decorate this tunnel new and that tunnel new? So it's very difficult, but yes, of course, the artists would love to do it.
Right, so you've already created some awareness and fuss around the topic in Hamburg. Andreas is asking, does the generation 65 plus use the tunnel at night? And have you also asked them during the nighttime about their perception?
Yes, they use it also at night. I mean, it also depends what night means, but I would say they said 10 o'clock is really late, also in winter time. So yes, they use it at night. We ask them in general what they think. If perceived safety increased, I think we really missed to ask them what is it at night. Yeah, so, but we think at the moment it's not possible because of Corona again, but we thought to continue our work, especially with this elderly home, and ask them for more details and deeper details. But yes, some of them use it at night and also in the winter time on a regular basis, 7, 8, 9 o'clock when it is already dark. So they have no problem to use it.
Great. Thank you very much once more, Heike. I suggest we move from Hamburg to Hamburg's partner city, St. Petersburg in Russia, the northern capital of Russia, and have a look at another target group that our project is working together with, and that's students. So Professor Yury Nurulin, I see that you are already sharing your screen and video. That's good. The floor is yours, and you will give us some insights into your pilot project and how you're working together with students there. So very much looking forward to that.
Just a moment. Hello, everyone. I'll just share. Okay. Okay. First of all, I would like to introduce you my colleague, Olga Kalchenko, who is the main key person if we are speaking about people, because Olga, formally she is communication manager, but people, this is a target group of her personal responsibility. First of all, a few words about our pilot site. We are Polytechnic University of St. Petersburg. Here you can see the plan of our main campus, which is marked by blue. The total area of this pilot area is 120 hectares. But pilot site of LUCIA project is rather smaller. It is marked by red. This is part of our park, where we are going to install 22 new effective smart luminaires. But what is important, because this area is a historical one and protected by the state, we have to do any works in this area only if we have special permission and joint project and so on. So this is additional, some difficulties when we are speaking, for instance, only about this really small pilot area of ours. This pilot area contains a very nice old park of Polytechnic University, 120 years old. This pilot area contains several historical objects of cultural and historical heritage. For instance, main building of Polytechnic University, chemical building of Polytechnic Universities. These are buildings which are protected by the state. We have a very nice water tower, which is as well object protected building. From one side, this is nice, very interesting, perfect buildings, but from other side, it creates for us additional difficulties because all field work could be done only if we get special permission from the state organizations. It needs time, it needs efforts, and this is what we must follow on. Sorry. The main target group of our pilot site are students of Polytechnic University. There are around 33,000 of students in our universities. They are our end users and our target groups. Then we have another target group. This is our researchers and teachers, around 5,000 people. In our pilot site, there are two multi-flat buildings and around 400 people which live in this building. So we have another target group. These are St. Petersburg citizens. So this is picture in general about our pilot site. Because we are part of the St. Petersburg city, naturally when we do something in our Polytechnic University campus, we have to coordinate, we have to get agreement from the city government level. A few words about light in St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is well known as a wonderful city with very nice white nights. In May, in June, in July, there are almost no necessary to have functional lighting. But in this period, the main focus of outdoor lighting moved on artistic one. At the same time, in St. Petersburg, we have very dark nights at winter time, December, January, and February. And at that time, the focus of outdoor lighting moved from artistic to functional lighting. This is our city. And if you are going to visit St. Petersburg, please use these white night periods. Beautiful period to visit St. Petersburg. In our city, there is a special organization, State Unitary Enterprise Landswet, which is responsible for outdoor lighting for all over the city. Landswet, this is associated partner of our project, and we have very close links with this organization. And Landswet is responsible for all objects in the St. Petersburg. In our city, responsibility for outdoor lighting belongs not to regions or municipalities, but Landswet, this is somehow monopolist for this task. And when I prepared this webinar, and if we are speaking about people, target groups, I remember the Yevatala words she told in our first webinar when we spoke about people first. What does it mean, people first? And Eva proposed exact definition. What does it mean? To put people first, you should engage, involve, inform, and listen to them. 1, 2, 3, 4 main functions when we are speaking about people. Students, all people, citizens. That's why in our further discussion, we will follow this proposed very nice way. So, Landswet, if we are speaking about Landswet, the efforts for outdoor lighting in St. Petersburg as a whole. You could see how many objects are in the focus of LUCIA for today. Many more objects they are responsible for. At the moment, if you visit LUCIA website, we could see the 8 objects with the best practice in outdoor lighting in St. Petersburg. And our aim is to add additional best practice in St. Petersburg's LUCIA best practice. We hope that next year our pilot site Polytechnic will be added as additional best practice object for LUCIA for St. Petersburg as a whole. How LUCIA inform people about their activity? First of all, there is a very popular website of LUCIA. They edit a corporate monthly newspaper, which is rather popular among St. Petersburg citizens. They're very active in social networks, and even in our exhibition room, you could see 2 videos proposed by LUCIA about outdoor lighting of in St. Petersburg. So I propose you to visit this our videos. How LUCIA try to involve people in their activity. Very interesting from my point of view experience when they propose special roads, even in walking in St. Petersburg. Popular roads to see St. Petersburg at night, mainly focused on young people because this is very romantic view of our wonderful city at night. How they try to involve young guys in the lighting problems of St. Petersburg. Several examples, for instance, they organized children's drawing contests, St. Petersburg, but the light of lanterns this year. They organized photo contests, lights of St. Petersburg with several nomination lanterns and tasks, panorama of Indian city, and so on. So LUCIA try to not only inform but involve citizens in their activity even through these contests. Very important function, how to listen people, how to get feedback from citizens about what they expect from lighting. LUCIA have several channels to get feedback from citizens. They get citizens appeals to LUCIA last year. In total was almost 18,000. They got through websites, through website our St. Petersburg. This is official website of the city, directly written to LUCIA. And what is the main reasons for appeal of citizens to LUCIA regarding outdoor lighting? You could see this is some kinds of vandalism, insufficient lighting, and so on and so on. So this feedback forms grounds to improve outdoor lightings in the city as a whole. Because LUCIA is associated partner of St. Peter's of LUCIA project, Polytechnic University tried to involve experts from LUCIA to all our activities. We created special department in Polytechnic University to involve LUCIA experts in our activity and so on. Coming back to the students as a main target group in our pilot site. Remember 33, 35, 32, depending on how to calculate. Students use this pilot site are our target group. How to engage something for this target group? First of all, the idea and the target of our LUCIA project is to create attractive environment for students, teachers, and citizens. In frame of this pilot site, because this pilot site are used by students regularly when they have evening lessons. Evening lessons in our university ended at 9:30 in the evening, so it is a dark time. So for teachers and for students, an attractive environment from the light point of view is very important. Then the aim of our project is to increase energy efficiency and to optimize energy consumption in this pilot area, because at the moment we have very old, not effective equipment, which is sodium or maybe even mercury illuminators, which are not efficient, must be changed. And the third main task of our project is to increase lighting quality and decrease light pollutions. About light pollutions, very important point. Before LUCIA, we never thought about this word, because in the past, for instance, for engineers, for end users, light pollutions means nothing. But now this is one of our target in the LUCIA project. We try to involve students in our activity. First of all, we organized a small but very active group of students which try to establish cooperation with existing student societies. In Polytechnic, we have several student societies which are focused for educational, for environmental issues, for engineering issues, and so on and so on. And cooperation with these existing student societies is one of the instruments how to involve wide students' auditorium in LUCIA activity. Then, because we are because we are teachers and we make regular education, bachelor and master's levels, we try to use this possibility to promote LUCIA ideas among students. At least 2 institutes of Polytechnic University, students from these institutes are involved in this educational activities. This is Institute of Industrial Management, Economics and Trade, and the Institute of Computer Science. Olga, me, and other teachers involved in LUCIA project use this possibility to involve students in problems of outdoor lighting. Our students created promotional video just to inform about LUCIA project and to distribute information about our activity among students. Several cases were developed for innovation management disciplines, which is based on the problems formulated in the LUCIA project. And when we preparing tasks for students, researcher, master's and bachelor thesis, LUCIA issues one of these topics which is used. We try to inform as much as possible students about the project and the problem, which is the topic of LUCIA. Several meetings with student society leaders, teachers and students were organized. Several presentations of LUCIA what was done. We used websites and social networks, and the main idea is to inform students about our activity. Because what we have found when we ask students, what do you think about outdoor lighting? As a rule, nothing. Why? We don't know. Is it possible? Is it interesting? Is it necessary? Is it important? So the main, before to involve people, we must inform them. That's why activities focused on information, dissemination of our ideas, especially new ideas listening today. Very interesting topic we are discussed in the beginning of our seminar about light pollution and stars night. Just to inform people about this possible new thinking, new point of view. And when we're trying to listen students, we organize questionnaire for students to get feedback. We organize some discussions in frame of students' research, because we are teachers and we try to use this possibility for involvement students in the target group. I know that now in the webinar, several our students participated. So we could ask them if necessary and to get additional feedback from our students and additional possibility to listen to them what they're thinking about. So this is in general what I would like to say about our pilot site. And we are ready to answer your question, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Yury. Before we come to the questions, I see there are some in the chat. I know that you and Olga have prepared some questions to us, in fact.
Yeah.
And Nicolas, maybe you can activate these questions now. And all the participants, if you go to the right-hand menu here in Hopin, you see at the right-hand top, you see chat, polls, and people. And if you click on polls, you should now see two questions that Yury and Olga have prepared for you. Number one, how relevant is the topic of light pollution in your field of work? And number two, when creating a new outdoor lighting system at the pilot site Polytech, what results would you be most interested in? And I think this is probably a question that also is more directed towards the students of Polytech that are with us today. We're very happy that many of them are here. So you can quickly vote there. And then we can have a look at the results. And you can also comment them, of course, Yury and Olga. Good. I suggest that we still give participants a minute to vote. In the meantime, I can maybe take up one question from Heike, who was asking about the information activities that you have in the project. You mentioned before being able to deeply involve, it's important to inform about new ideas. That was what I got from your presentation. And Heike was wondering, is this topic of light pollution one of the topics that you are informing students about? And is this knowledge building and information also directed towards Lensviet as the associated partner?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll try to ask. First of all, for me personally, this question about light pollution is rather new. Before Lucia, I never thought about this, about light pollution. At the same time, I saw this pollution very often. When I came back from my dacha to St. Petersburg, in 30 kilometers, not 30, 20 kilometers before I come to the city, I can see a lot of light, which is in fact light pollution. So, and I think a lot of people are in the same position. We see this fact, but we do not recognize that this is exactly pollution. Because this word light pollution, it's not typical for Russia. In Russia, pollution means something, I don't know, something hard pollution, like a waste, not light pollution. So this is new word, new, and that's why when we speak with the students, when we inform them about our activity, naturally we mention this topic. But at the same time, we, myself, and I believe Olga as well, need additional knowledge about this topic. That's why the first presentation of this webinar was very, very interesting for us, because it provided us a lot of additional information which will be used by us in our further information activity, because these discussions are continuing now, just now when we meet with students, when we have lessons, seminars, discussions. And we will naturally use all this knowledge, to inform people about these students, about this topic, not from the point of view as end users, but maybe as researchers, not only think, but how to, should we do something to protect or should use it? So our idea is to study this point of view, not from the user's point of view, but from the point of view as researchers, students. So
right, yeah,
is to inform students more and more. I do not about Landswet. I cannot ask for them, but when I look through all this, their documents, official websites, additional documents, I never met
Alexei Kosoy answered in the chat.
Alexei Kosoy, which is our contact point in Landswet. Now he's in the chat, and Olga told me
He answered that they have his control.
yes, maybe you could briefly translate for those who don't speak Russian. I see that he commented
that light pollution is controlled by Landswet and research and conducted by students in Polytechnic. So the answer from Landswet, yes, Landswet know about. They try to control this, and even some research made by students in ITMO University and our university. So my question was only from my personal point of view. Okay.
Thank you very much, Yury. And let's maybe have a look at the poll results. We can see there, regarding your first question about the relevance of light pollution, we can see that 58% of respondents say it's very relevant. 42 say it's medium relevant, and there is none who's saying it's not relevant at all. So that's probably not a surprise after these two talks we had in this morning, but still, I think an interesting picture.
Result of the first presentation of Andreas, yeah.
And regarding the second question, I see that votes are still coming in, but there seems to be a clear majority for saying both the preservation of the historical heritage and the aspects of energy efficiency should be in balance. So would you like to comment on this?
Yes, interesting answer. First of all, it's reasonable, because if we have artistic lighting, it's not necessary to have additional functional lighting sometimes. At the same time, so first of all, it must be developed in coordination. When we have a joint project for our pilot site, in this project, we take into account both lights from artistic lighting and from this functional lighting. So it must be in balance. I agree with this feedback, especially in our pilot site, when it's very, very nice view when we have this artistic lighting for historical buildings. This is just a wonderful picture. So it's not,
you can see it in the expo.
Yes, Olga told me that in our expo site you could see this wonderful picture. That's why this answer is reasonable, and I'm not sure. I'm not surprised of this. It's normal.
Yeah, thank you very much once more, Professor Yury Nurulin and Olga Kalchenko, for these insights. And thank you also, Andreas Hänel once more, and Heike Bunte for your great presentations. Thank you for all participants today for joining us. Yury already mentioned several times the video material that is available in the exhibition area. So if you click on Expo on the left-hand side of the menu, you will be able to see more information about the Hamburg and the St. Petersburg pilot site. Also 2 videos by Lenz Wirth, the outdoor lighting company in St. Petersburg, as well as some more general information on LUCIA, our knowledge center, as well as our videos. So thank you all very much for this webinar, for your interest, for joining us today. We hope to see many of you again next Wednesday. So Wednesday morning is LUCIA time during the autumn. As I said in the beginning, next Wednesday, we'll have a talk about economic aspects of energy efficient and intelligent urban lighting solutions. So thank you once more. Have a nice day. Have a look at the exhibition area and stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.